knowing that that which I am cannot be destroyed. It cannot be hurt. Nothing can happen to it.
And I just want to say, the elephant in the room is this. That's impossible for us to understand.
Exactly.
And the elephant in the room is the miracle.
Yes.
That's the only way. The miracle is the only proof that proves against the body. The body proves again and again that it's separate, it's flawed, it does this, it's a great vehicle for guilt. Whip it, send it off into the desert, burn it at the stake, crucify it. Good deal. Mission accomplished, even though you still got your guilt. But you've still got your guilt. You've still got your problem. The body does nothing to solve anything. Before we even have a conversation about Jesus or salvation history or even the body, understand the importance of symbols to us. And just notice how the words on the page are symbolic. The words as they form in my head are symbolic. The stop sign is symbolic. The government is symbolic. The Senate is symbolic. Wars are symbolic of something. It's really just mass destruction. Buildings going up or down is symbolic.
Right.
You know, constructing them, destructing them. People and who they are and how they identify, it's all symbolic. Symbols, symbols, symbols. We live in our heads. It's very important before we have any kind of coherent conversation about theology or philosophy or anything, is to realize we got a deck of symbols and we're just trading them and we're combining them and we're working with symbols. That's where we're at. And the Course is saying, very important, what deck you're using, what symbolic deck you're using. Is it stacked or is it a real game? Is it the real thing?
Right.
This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The Course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Today's reading is from chapter 18, The Passing of the Dream. And today's reading is from section 6, Beyond the Body. There is nothing outside you. That is what you must ultimately learn, for it is the realization that the kingdom of heaven is restored to you. For God created only this, and he did not depart from it nor leave it separate from himself. The kingdom of heaven is the dwelling place of the Son of God, who left not his Father and dwells not apart from him. Heaven is not a place nor a condition. It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness and the knowledge that there is nothing else, nothing outside this oneness, and nothing else within.
Okay, does everybody have that? Can we move on?
No.
No, I'm kidding.
We have
I mean,
to say that
because it's loaded. Of course, my perceptive realm is to be trapped in a body. I feel trapped in a body. I feel like I'm totally caught in a body, right? Like this is HQ, like I'm in some control tower and I'm looking out at the world around me.
And there's an inside. Those are my private thoughts. And there's an outside.
Right, and the outside is sketchy. I see some of it. I don't see some of it. It can't come at me. Some of it's going to help me. Some of it's going to hurt me. Of course. That's all obvious. Yeah, it's
but
obvious.
anyway, it's saying there is nothing outside you. There's nothing outside any of you. And that's what we must ultimately learn.
Well, let's get this. Let's go directly to this line. It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness.
Oh, the heaven is not a place nor a condition.
Yeah, heaven is not a place nor a condition, a place of an awareness of perfect oneness. In other words, I'll say that heaven, that it's all in your mind. Mm-hmm. There's no. These are criticisms that the Course in Miracles will get from different people, and they'll say, I don't know, it's pretty spacey, right?
Right.
Because it's saying that nothing of this is really here. It's all in your head. So that we throw it into a thing. I just want to point out quickly that what has happened is that we have demoted the mind, thinking, ideas, and what we consider creativity. We've demoted the realm of ideas to just nothing. It's just...
Right, and everything of the body is everything.
Right, the body is the real deal. You know, I mean,
yeah.
you better deal with your life insurance. You better deal with this stuff, because your ideas about stuff, man, they're not going to help you when your bladder's falling out or whatever. Or this is the critical thing. And the goal of this particular episode is to get underneath the problem, the obvious problem we have with some of these statements that sound so airy-fairy and la-la-landish.
Well, right, because, I mean, the one thing where it says heaven is not a place nor a condition, I mean, in a traditional Christian format, heaven is above, hell is below. You know, it is a place.
Okay.
In the mind,
and
it becomes a place.
We could go on and on and on with this. I could go on. So everything you're saying, above-ness, below-ness.
It's all in relationship
suffering,
to the body.
Suffering-ness. It's related to the body, but the body, all of these are symbolic terms. Up is symbolic. Down is symbolic. If you're standing on your head, what's up, what's down? It's all relativistic. So the problem is, in this world right here, we take relativistic. In other words, I have to know, think about this 1 second, then I'm going to get off of it. You have, in this world, to know up from down, inside from outside, black from white, you have to have a fixed anchor. You have to have a fixed anchor. Yeah. And in this world, there is none. The Course in Miracles is discussing that very anchor that gives us the ability to say, this is up, this is down. Coherence is not of this realm.
Okay, and so how does it do that?
The Course?
Yeah, how does it do that?
Well, the whole metaphysics about the Holy Spirit and about the relationship of God and the Son and all of this, you know, verbiage that goes on and on and on through, you know, a million words is about identifying the pole star by which you can identify heaven's up there, or hell's down there, or hell is suffering, or heaven is a reward. You can't have those ideas without the fixed place that the Course in Miracles is trying to get us to understand.
And the fixed place is the Holy Son of God himself.
It's God.
Yes.
The fixed place is, or if you want to go Hindu, it's the self with a capital S, or if you atma, or you know, the Christ. Let's call it the Christ, the kingdom, Christ. The kingdom of Christ. You know, the Jesus as
right. That, you know, that's why it said we needed to recognize in the very beginning there was nothing outside of you, that is what you must ultimately learn, for it is the realization that the kingdom of heaven is restored to you. So that the awareness of the kingdom of heaven being right here, right now, is restored to me when I recognize that nothing is outside of me. Not outside of the body, what they're saying is not outside of my son, the sonship that I am, the Son of God.
And the only way to get that is to recognize, and the Course says this in many places, we live in a realm of ideas. And we're going to get into this. The body as an idea, up as an idea, down as an idea, being hurt as an idea, attack. These are all in the mind as ideas, and they're all relative. I mean, if I went to a chiropractor and I say, wow, that was fantastic, you really set my spine, and the same thing happened to me, I'm woken up from sleep and some person is working over my spine, I would think I was being attacked.
Right.
It's relative to the context. Everything we experience is relative. You know, you can say, wow, that was a great workout, that was hard. But if somebody makes you do it as a punishment, you go, oh, this is a cruel and unusual punishment. It's all relative. The Course is trying to get us past relativity.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Paragraph.
And no, there was something that you were saying earlier about what is your pole star. And interestingly enough, depending on where you're coming from, it's your ego is your pole star, or it's God. I mean,
right. No, the ego is a pole star.
I mean, I'm just saying it just depends on
okay, and that's a good point.
Where you're choosing, because everything that's from my egoic mindset is looking out and projecting and getting something back. And if I make God the pole star, it's not like that.
God is the only absolute pole star. Let's be clear about this.
Right.
Let's throw out the idea of God, throw out the idea of devil or the ego or any of that kind of stuff and say there's an absolute pole star, which is a reliable, fixed entity.
Doesn't change.
Against which is a true measure. This is, the Ancient of Days. It's like the measurement of all things. Then there's another pole, call it a pole star, which is a purely relativistic pole star. And that means, what is the pole star? Whatever you want it to be, whenever it's convenient. That's not a pole star.
Right.
That is the egoic
And it
state of
changes
mind.
all the time.
Right.
Yes, I agree.
Paragraph 2. What could God give but knowledge of himself? What else is there to give? The belief that you could give and get something else, something outside yourself, has cost you the awareness of heaven and of your identity, and you have done a stranger thing than you yet realize. You have displaced your guilt to your body from your mind. Yet a body cannot be guilty, for it can do nothing of itself. You who think you hate your body deceive yourself. You hate your mind, for guilt has entered into it, and it would remain separate from your brothers, which it cannot do.
Yes. So, I mean, that clarifies this. So, from the perspective of a body ego sense, my mind is where my private thoughts are, and the mind that it's speaking of is the mind which joins all minds, and that's the only place where I can recognize myself with my brother. And yet, it's saying that I projected.
The mind is not
guilt.
in your head.
Yeah,
The mind is not up here. The mind is not in the brain.
Right. That's what needs to be clarified.
As soon as I say to myself, hey, I wonder if there's some good stuff out there, there's a flip side to the statement. It's not here.
Right.
As soon as I say that there's something wonderful, treasures, wonders, adventures, as soon as I identify these things, whatever they are, great material things, great relationships, beautiful people, as soon as I identify that, the flip side of it, that might excite me. But the flip side is, you are not that. You lack. You are deficient. And that is an engine that thrives this. It's the proverbial grass is always greener on the other side. You identify that, I don't really like what I'm munching on here. I wonder if there's some greener grass on the other side.
Right.
Well, and the fact is, and it goes on in this, you will find greener grass on the other side. You will.
Temporarily.
You will, because that's the way this world is set up.
Yes.
So that it proves all those crazy ideas, and we're trying to get past those proofs.
Problem is, you get to the greener grass, you find it's all crabgrass, and you don't like it.
Well, okay, no. What happens is, you find out that in the material realm, because it's relativistic, and there is no fixed pole star, all pain and all pleasure, pain and pleasure, is a shell game, and it's a continuous shell game. So if you like playing a shell game, which really involves anxiety and insecurity, you never know when your shell is going to show up. It's like Russian roulette. You never know when the loaded thing is in there. It can be an exciting game until you hear the trigger pull. That's the part of the game in Russian roulette you do not want to explore, is that you might blow your head off. And the whole egoic world is that shell game, and we never know when it's going to blow up.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that, yes, there is greener grass, and you might go over there and it's sweet and succulent and wonderful, and there's a huge supply of it, but then you find out some caveats. There are always caveats.
Right, that's what I mean.
To whatever wonder you discover.
Right.
I mean, this is the whole thing with Hollywood, right? Yeah, now I'm an NBA star. Now I'm a movie star. Now I'm a rock star idol. I'm some sort of a thing. There are caveats. There's no escape from those things.
I agree. So I just want to emphasize again that the body cannot be guilty. It's only the mind. Okay, so we tend to displace the guilt onto the body from the mind. Yet the body cannot be guilty, for it can do nothing of itself. And it is said repeatedly that the body is neutral. And
okay, let's just think about it. What is guilty about a body? What's condemnable about a body? So fill it in. Fill in some blanks. You got some stuff.
Well,
what is it?
Tends to be all kinds of judgments, and it tends to be a lot. Most of the time, the
It
guilt.
hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts. The body hurts.
Yeah, the body hurts.
You're trying to hold a book up, and you decide you want to hold it up for a year, and you're only good for a few minutes. Well, that's a failure. The body fails.
Right.
You know, you get old, you die.
Sexual promiscuity is considered the guilt of all times.
Well, you know.
I mean, it was.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
Yeah,
so there's guilt in the sex thing, and there's guilt in the overeating thing, and there's guilt in the deceiving your friends or brothers or whatever.
Yes.
Cowardice. Very, very guilty. You know, running from
Laziness,
the field of battle.
Whatever. Whatever.
There are many, many things that we can lay on the body as guilts, and the body proves us out for all those things.
Yes, but it always originates in the mind and then is projected out.
Okay,
I'm
going to explore it. I'm on a battlefield. Bullets are whizzing by. I'm crapping my pants. Because this is startlingly terrifying. I know what this means. There's no illusions here. This thing is going to tear me in half. And so I run, or I go away, or I dodge the draft, or whatever level of cowardice I experience, and then have this shame. And the culture comes in and says, shame, 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 because you didn't sacrifice that body for higher ideals. Your body isn't, unless you give up your life for your friends, you're not doing it right.
Right.
So that there's that level of guilt that we play in this thing.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, I think it would take too much time to go into it. But this is how we lay guilt on the body. But I was going to get hurt.
Right.
What fool would stay there and take a bullet?
No, I know.
Just because they're dumber than me.
Yeah.
But then you're still caught with that. And it's the same with sex. It's like, well, it feels so good. I mean, what the body made, the devil made me do it. Like Flip Wilson used to say, it's like, well, I got into all this sex stuff. Well, why wouldn't I? Why would God give me those particular excitements, if I didn't want to take advantage of this stuff,
Right.
And so that there's these arguments, and we can lay it on the body. Even Paramahansa Yogananda said, the nest of the troubles begins with the body. It is very, very common for us, even religious teachers, to lay guilt on the body as the problem.
Yes, I agree. And that's saying it starts with the mind. So let's go on to
maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, paragraph 3. Minds are joined, bodies are not. Only by assigning to the mind the properties of the body does separation seem to be possible. And it is mind that seems to be fragmented and private and alone. Its guilt, which keeps it separate, is projected to the body, which suffers, and dies because it is attacked to hold the separation in the mind and let it not know its identity. Mind cannot attack, but it can make fantasies and direct the body to act them out. Yet it is never what the body does that seems to satisfy. Unless the mind believes the body is actually acting out its fantasies, it will attack the body by increasing the projection of its guilt upon it.
There's a lot of words there. And I just want to point out again, as I've done several times, all of these are describing a world, a universe, and the way that universe works. If we approach this at the level of just simple statements that are lined up, stacked up one next to the other, it can be confounding, absolutely confounding. But what this is saying is, with a little bit of exploration, I can see that as they have these, it's called neti, not this, not this. It's an exercise. I have a body. Well, let's say I lose my finger. Do I still have my body? No, it's the same whole body. It's just I'm short one finger. Hand is gone. Arm is gone. Is my body going away? Well, obviously, I'm becoming hampered in terms of its function, but I'm still here 100%.
Right.
And I'm still a body 100%. I don't sit around and dream about that arm off someplace and wish I could stick it back on. That's a wish, or a wish fulfillment. But the fact is, my perceptual reality is if I lose all my arms, all my legs, all my internal functions, I'm hooked up to machines, and I'm just a torso without hardly any cognitive function, I still locate this thought process in this thing that's left over, and I never say I'm only half here. I'm still there 100%. It's relative.
Right. That's a very good example.
So we have to go through this process of understanding that, the body, the split mind, as Joanna pointed out, the mind is literally split in half. It's two halves. So the split begins at the level of the brain. And then the brain has two different kinds of thought processes, which you want to say are minds, but they're not. They're epiphenomenon of the brain. Then you have the body as a further, also bilateral symmetry, right, left, up, down, head versus tail. The whole body is full of these dualities.
Yes.
Then I go further out, and I have the stuff that I have in my life. Things get further and further away from me. Then I have the stuff in my life, and outside of that is a community. You know the story. It's nested dolls of what we call reality into society and the world and the threats and the unique aspects of all those things. It's all symbolic, and it all sources in the mind.
Right.
None of it has any reality whatsoever other than the reality, as it says in the Course, but we got to go slow walk it. It only has the reality that I give it.
That's true.
It has the quality that I give it. I'll give you an example. I had that house in Bend. It began as a symbol of family unity, of happiness. My kids jumping up and down, exploring the bedrooms, going upstairs and downstairs, and me going, well, let's keep our fingers crossed so we can pay for this thing. That's me. The wife is happy, kids are happy, everybody's happy. That's what it began as a symbol of. Very, very quickly, it became a symbol of a prison to my wife, and for me, it became a symbol of a kind of a Waterloo, like a battleground where we were going to have some sort of ultimate battle. It became a symbol of battleground, a symbol of prison. So she and I are splitting, right? We're splitting, but we both have the house as a symbol, separate symbols. Eventually, the house became a symbol of my own ultimate desires, or my ultimate, ultimate things, larger things. Call it, the house became like a spiritual issue. In other words, if I cling to the house, it's going to drag me to the bottom of the lagoon, and I'm going to die. So the house became, like the body eventually becomes, something to cleave off and then be free of this. It became a symbol of freedom, right?
Yeah. So
house, you see how the house, the body, all these things are changing.
Yeah, we give it all the meaning that it has.
Yeah, so I just want to point out that when it's talking about these, it takes a little bit of time to go through this exercise. Instead of just saying, none of this makes sense, real is real, unreal is unreal, I don't understand what this is saying. If by chance someone is saying that, because it seems exhausting to go here sometimes. Just recognize that I determine what those things are. Notice that my house changed its essential reality over the course of how my life was changing.
Right.
And life and ideas. That's just a small example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of how all things are a symbol of what the mind makes of something at each point along the way. It's got a different relative relationship with it, depending on what is going on in the life of the mind.
Well, let me quickly drag in the most frightening manifestation of that, which is the love relationship. So Joanna and I have ideas about who we are to each other. She symbolizes something, I symbolize something to her. We're trapped with this.
Yes.
Now, what you realize is, yes, we are living in a world of symbols and mind structures constructs. We're in that. And so that what she and I have to do, as let's say we're doing the Course in Miracles, is to not say, wow, we're going to make this more and more solid. We're going to make this solid and solid and solid. I'm going to do it by reading books on how husbands treat their wives and all that. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. But I'm just saying, you don't make your relationship more and more solid to where it's impervious.
No.
If you're doing the Course, you will find out that it's impossible. And you will be threatened in order to grow truly. And so that what we have to do is realize she's a dynamic entity. I'm a dynamic entity. We share that commonality. We don't know what that commonality is, that common brotherhood that is here. But somewhere hidden in this special relationship is the holy relationship. And only by us deciding, reveal yourself, holy relationship, reveal yourself.
Reveal yourself.
Does
holy
this
relationship.
become,
I agree.
does this, it can be refreshed, renewed again and again, despite those shifting symbols, despite the relativity.
Yeah, and also I just wanted to reflect on the idea of mind, and that God said, "I am a thought." The sun is the thought extension of the mind of God. There's only one mind, and it is the mind of God that has a thought that is extended, and I am that thought, which makes me the effect, of that whole thing. So the mind that we're talking about, as you said, is not just what I think in my little mind, because ultimately the only thoughts that are real are the ones that are like God, they're the only, everything else is
right. Those are just, but in a sense, those are just words, and the way that it falls out to me, the way it falls out is there's only God. There's nothing else. Joanna and I are talking here. It's absolute arrogance to think that we're not other than just God. That's all. Because if you just think about it logically, there can only be God. That's all there is. Now, God, being love, decides to express love. The expressed love of God is the Son of God.
Yes.
So this is where we come in. And you start to have like distillates of God's love and the interpretation of those things. And then, the Course is talking about the mad idea and the separation and all that stuff. But in the end, there's God and His love. And that's all there is. Nothing else is going on. So rather than me trying to work backwards and try to say, well, how are we being godly? No, you just have to assume on the front end that it doesn't make sense that there is anything here except the whole thing. That's all that's here, is the whole thing.
And if I'm trying to be godly, that's usually from another place. The only way that extension of love really happens in truth is by uniting with God, with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit. And that is the remembrance of who and what I really am. If I can unite with that which is an extension of God, that means I am also an extension of God.
So the bottom line of it, paragraph 3, minds are joined, bodies are not. And that the only way that you can separate minds is by treating a mind like a body. So you can see that a body is a symbolic gesture of separation.
Yes, it is.
It's like I can say to Joanna, I said, well, I've got my bank account, you got your bank account, they're separate bank accounts. Well, that's a game.
Right.
That's a game we're playing. It's like, because if you're married, it's like my money is your money.
But once you're in the game, the idea is to how to find your way out of the game, which means that I need to see you as myself. The whole thing is that I come to recognize that you are not other than me as a big I. And when that starts to happen, the dream begins to, it transforms. It transforms into another awakening dream, meaning the happy dream. And that's our work.
Okay.
That's all I can say. That's our work.
It's a deep one. Paragraph 4. In this, the mind is clearly delusional. I'm going to go back and catch that last sentence. Unless the mind believes the body is actually acting out its fantasies, it will attack the body by increasing the projection of its guilt upon it. Meaning, the egoic world needs the body to prove out its wisdom, to prove out its intelligence and its reality. It needs it. So in this, the mind is clearly delusional. It cannot attack, but it maintains it can, and uses what it does to hurt the body to prove it can. The mind cannot attack, but it can deceive itself. And this is all it does when it believes it has attacked the body. It can project its guilt, but it will not lose it through projection, and through it, and though it clearly can misperceive the function of the body, it cannot change its function from what the Holy Spirit establishes it to be. The body was not made by love, yet love does not condemn it and can use it lovingly, respecting what the Son of God has made and using it to save him from illusions. We're talking about large dynamics here. It sounds like we're talking about the body, and that is in fact beyond the, well, and this one's called Beyond the Body.
Yes.
We're trying to get past
Yes.
the body as a topic of conversation.
But you have to recognize where it is in the mind as far as what we conceive of it before you can get beyond it.
The body is symbolic of my containment. That's what it is. The body is a symbolic
of your separation.
of my separation.
Yes.
You know, because as you know, I mean, it's like you got a bunch of people in a swimming pool. There's symbolic separation because they're all swimming in each other's dead skin cells and fluids, and God knows what the kids are doing. You know, it's like you're all in the same bathtub.
Right.
So energetically, we're all in the same bathtub. And even in terms of what this body does, in terms of shedding skin cells, you know, like you replace your mouth lining and your tongue, I think something like every 7 days or something like that. Your bones are replaced like every 7 or 12 years or something like that. So the body, if you sped it way, way up, you can see it's just melting down and rebuilding continuously. So even the body is only a placeholder for this. All the cell functions, all it is, I told Joanna, even if you go down, I know you know this, is that when you go down to the cellular function, you don't find matter. You find radiance. You find luminance.
It's light.
You find light. So the body itself, this, no matter how hard or difficult or limited or whatever it feels, these are all manifestations of that symbolic quality of body that I bring to it, which is so good at proving out our limitedness. It's so good at that.
Right.
That's what it was built for. That's why it said it was not made out of love. It's saying that because you can see that the body is really, really good at proving that we're different, we're separate, she goes her way, I go my way, no harm done, everybody can be separate from each other, so if they so choose. This is the symbolic nightmare that the ego is there to enforce, using the body as a whipping boy to prove out those things.
Yeah, and to project its guilt, either onto itself or another. That's what the body's for, is to project guilt onto. That's my understanding.
Well, okay, but I mean, but like with everything else, it's, you know, it's, again, Flip Wilson, the devil made me do it. I did something, and I feel an onus of responsibility coming on me. You know, it's Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and stuff like that. Adam, you screwed up. And he goes, well, no, she made me do it. You know, there's this blame game that we do. And the body is the first line of, literally, the first line of defense.
Yes.
How many times have you heard, we're only human? What does that mean? What does that mean? Only human means what?
Only a body.
That's all it means. That's all it means.
That means I'm a body.
Somebody, a guy just left a great comment. I'll probably butcher it, but from I think Emanuel Swedenborg, where he said that that it's not. Anyway, Swedenborg says that God is human. Okay, I'm going to butcher the quote, so I'm not going to try it. God is human. That's why we are who we are. It's not like, and so then, okay, what does that do to you when you say God is human? It means, well, what does it take for me to be human? I've always said human beings can't be divine, but that switches it, so we need to become more human.
Right.
More loving, more compassionate. Become human like God is human. Those are just labels.
Right.
But that label does a mind trick on your head to where you say, how do I become more human as a good thing?
Yes.
Instead of just saying we're only human.
as in human and humane, you know, so
Yeah.
that, you know, you're not doing attack and defend and destroying yourself or others.
Well, the deal with laying guilt on the body and that whole role of guilt, and we've talked about it so much, and there is that video that needs to be made just strictly about what is guilt, because it's a confusing term.
Right.
And just as this conversation on the body, I'm going to say here, the Course is saying body, 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 body. And it's what it's saying is model of separation. Substitute that term, model of separation, for the body. It's a game we play, and the body is the obvious thing walking around going, well, see, look, I'm separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always moving me when I do it from a thought system that derives just from the idea of, as you call it, solipsistic, which means everything is, my entire world is what I make of it right here through my mind, through this centered spot. That's why I was saying, you know, that this is a type of a pole star. So, but the Course moves me from a body-centric, egocentric self to the Son of God, eternal self. That it wants to put the priority in my thought system of not from the body-centric, but in the eternal sense of self, knowing that that which I am cannot be destroyed. It cannot be hurt. Nothing can happen to it.
And I just want to say, the elephant in the room is this. Mm-hmm. That's impossible for us to understand.
Exactly.
And the elephant in the room is the miracle.
Yes.
That's the only way. That the miracle is the only proof that proves against the body. The body proves again and again that it's separate, it's flawed, it does this, it's a great vehicle for guilt. Whip it, send it off into the desert, burn it at the stake, crucify it. Good deal. Mission accomplished, even though you still got your guilt. You know, you laid your guilt on the body, and it says that here.
Right.
You lay your guilt on the body, and you can do anything you want to. You can drag it around the walls of Troy until it's rotted, but you've still got your guilt. You've still got your problem. The body does nothing to solve anything.
Yes. And in fact, that vision of laying your guilt on it, that's what we did to Jesus when we put him on the cross. We projected all of our guilt, you know, as a collective of that time and probably still, onto one, so that it could be sacrificed completely and be the sacrificial lamb for, quote, the sins of the world. Interestingly enough, it obviously does not work.
Okay, I want to say,
you know, which is interesting.
Rather than comment on, because that is rich.
Yes.
That's very, very rich. The crucifixion, the resurrection as a topic of, you know, the historical Jesus' role in salvation history and all this kind of thing. Very, very rich. And I would say that the most important thing about it is, before we even have a conversation about Jesus or salvation history or even the body, understand the importance of symbols to us. And just notice how the words on the page are symbolic. The words as they form in my head are symbolic. The stop sign is symbolic. The government is symbolic. The Senate is symbolic. Wars are symbolic of something. It's really just mass destruction. Buildings going up or down is symbolic.
Right.
You know, constructing them, destructing them. People and who they are and how they identify, it's all symbolic. Symbols, symbols, symbols. We live in our heads. It's very important before we have any kind of coherent conversation about theology or philosophy or anything, is to realize we got a deck of symbols, and we're just trading them, and we're combining them, and we're working with symbols. That's where we're at. And the Course is saying, very important, what deck you're using, what symbolic deck you're using. Is it stacked, or is it a real game? Is it the real thing?
Right. I agree. I agree with that.
Okay.
Okay. Paragraph 5. Would you not have the instruments of separation reinterpreted as means for salvation and used for purposes of love? Would you not welcome the support, the shift from fantasies of vengeance to release? Would you not welcome and support the shift from fantasies of vengeance to release from them? Your perception of the body can clearly be sick, but project not this upon the body. For your wish to make destructive what cannot destroy can have no real effect at all. What God created is only what He would have it be, being His will. You cannot make His will destructive. You can make fantasies in which your will conflicts with His, but that is all.
Let's just take an image of the proverbial nightmare scenario of a shooter that goes into the bank with an automatic weapon and mows down everybody in the room. Okay? Now, those people aren't going to pull out their Course in Miracles and start, seeing how that this is all an illusion and all this kind of stuff. It's horrible. There's blood everywhere. It's a mess. Lives are destroyed. People's minds are destroyed. But and that is what the Course is saying about how we use the body in terms of the media's use of the body, like that scene, how we hold the person with the big gun, or how we hold the victims of the event. Those are all symbolic as well.
Right.
I don't want to make it seem like this is like I'm cold about this. It's just it's necessary to stop the cycle of violence that we have to understand what we're really doing. And what we're really doing is manipulating the body to prove out untenable ideas. We don't bother staying around long enough to see that these ideas are untenable. And we just moan, and we go to funerals, and we rub our hands together, and we go to the hospital, and we watch the drip, drip, drip from the IV. All these things happen, and we just go, woe is us, constantly praying, wishing, hoping, studying against the body and what it's going to do to us. And we've got, as it says, beyond the body, we've got to start to get past, because what's one thing that I have to get past? The fear that my little diatribe that I just said about the body is going to come back and bite me. And somebody's going to see, Phil, look, you got to suffer just like everybody else. We got to get past that fear that, because it's necessary to begin to get away. Because what that fear is a gun to the head. It's the ego with a gun saying, you're going to do what I tell you.
Right.
You're going to believe what I tell you to believe.
Right.
And the minute you don't, I'm pulling the trigger. It's all over for you.
And yet it won't ever pull the trigger because it requires you. It will keep you this close to death and fear.
So we have to be willing to go ahead and entertain the frightening scenarios of my own physical illnesses or the cancers and the problems and the car wrecks and just realize that yes, there is a world of carnage, that frightens us to death, and we just want to stay away from it and
Right.
stay clear.
Build higher fences. Build, more separation.
But
That's what it wants.
But to get past that, it takes this understanding of what's really terrifying us, what's really frightening about it, and be willing to go there. I'm saying if that process of gaining courage in the face of these kinds of horrible issues is, let's say, 100, if the courage. Me talking about it right now is 1.5. I got 98 and a half to go in understanding this problem. In other words, it doesn't go away just because you said the body is a dream or the body is the body is a symbol or an idea. This is a work. It's a constant work that we have here, and the only way to accomplish the work says it. You know what it is? Fill in the blanks. The miracle.
Yes.
That's the only way to do the work. Because
I call it the holy instant.
The holy instant. But the holy instants are here.
Yes.
But we release them through our creative agency, our creative relationship with the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
The miracle does not. The holy instant doesn't manifest, blossom as the miracle without our willingness.
That's true. Absolutely.
So we bring our willingness, and only the miracle, and only the science of miracles, the desire for this miraculous relationship, and to go that's the only thing that can carry me from a terror of what's going to happen to my body, which are, I'm telling you, real concerns.
Yes, they are. Yes. But I did like, I mean, in this particular, I agree with you on all of those things. In this particular paragraph where it's going to use what I created, would you not have the instruments of separation, which the body is, reinterpreted as a means for salvation and used for the purposes of love? That can only happen when we call in the Holy Spirit. Would you not welcome the support, the shift from fantasies of vengeance to release from them? To release from them. Yes. Fantasies of vengeance to release from them. Yes. Your perception of the body can clearly be sick, but project not this upon the body. So it's giving us instruction. Don't project onto the body the thoughts of the mind that will then have the body have to act out the thing that you've now projected onto it. It's going to fulfill the fantasy.
Okay, let's just say I'm sick. Okay, let's say I get sick. We got to dial in. You know, let's say I'm sick or some other physical issue is going on. I have two choices. One is to go with it and say the body is dictating to me where my life goes from here on until I take care of it. That's like one way I can go. The other way that I have available to me at the same moment is to say something else is going on here. I don't understand what it is. Obviously I feel sick. I got whatever is going on and it's dreadful. It's frightening even. I know that that's going on, but I've got to say, I know because I'm doing the work or because I want to get beyond the body, there's something else happening here. Now, as soon as I say there's something else happening here, I have to say, give me some guidance. And that the only way for to make progress on understanding what that cold, that flu, that terminal illness, whatever it is, the only way to get at it is to say, lead me through this. Lead me through this thing. I'm obviously having a perceptual problem with the body. I don't want to lay it on the body. I don't want to let the body become the screaming voice that dictates what the rest of my life is.
Right. And given all of that too, I mean, when it comes to like, you know, I like the idea of listening to guidance. I use it all the time when some kind of something comes up. It doesn't mean that you don't take the pill or whatever else, because even Jesus, he used, you know, mud and spit on the person who was blind's eye. He actually used something. He could have just said, you can see, you know, whatever. And knowing where we are at in our thought process, sometimes we require sort of the magic in order to allay the fears of our world.
You're the one that brought it up.
I know.
But the beauty of that passage in the gospel is he used mud and spit.
Yes.
That's God's creative process. When he made Adam,
that's true.
He made Adam out of clay and he breathed on him.
Yes.
So what it's saying is Jesus, in that passage, is the Almighty God.
Oh, right.
And he's creating this man. And that man was not a human being until Jesus gave him vision.
Right.
That's what that's about.
That's a great analogy. I love that. I needed a reinterpretation. Apparently, the Holy Spirit spoke through him.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I don't know. The Holy Spirit uses whatever. Another body's good.
Paragraph 6. It is insane to use the body as the scapegoat for guilt, directing its attack and blaming it for what you wished it to do. It is impossible to act out fantasies. Is that what it said? Yeah. It is impossible to act out fantasies, for it is still the fantasies you want, and they have nothing to do with what the body does. It does not dream of them, and they but make it a liability where it could be an asset. For fantasies have made your body your enemy, weak, vulnerable, and treacherous, worthy of the hate that you invest in it. How has this served you? You've identified with this thing you hate, the instrument of vengeance, and the perceived source of your guilt. You've done this to a thing that has no meaning, proclaiming it to be the dwelling place of God's Son, and turning it against him.
Well, fantasies are of the mind. That's why, you know, it says you're using fantasies. And so it said that you could use your mind to deceive yourself in the prior paragraphs. So now fantasies are this deception that I decide to use the mind for something it was never meant to be used for. And I'm going to use deceit to keep myself in my fantasy world. It says it is insane to use the body as the scapegoat for guilt, directing its attack and blaming it for what you wished, again, of the mind to do. It's impossible to act out fantasies.
It says it's impossible to act out fantasies.
Now,
I
why
think we
is that?
should explore this.
Okay.
Because I'd say for sure that's what the whole, the Westworld, or that whole miniseries or whatever it was, where you can go to the Old West and there's all these robots and you can do whatever you want. I mean, they're just robots, and so you can rape the women, you can have gunfights, you can kill people. You can do whatever you want to do. It's a fantasy, and you can act out that fantasy. People do it to Disney World. They say, and I want this fantasy of being in the Magic Kingdom, and there's Mickey, and I'm in a little spinning teacup. And there's these faces around me and funny music going on, and it's like, I'm in this fantasy or haunted house. The bottom falls out. Are those not? What's wrong with that? Are those not acting out fantasies as extreme cases of where we try to set ourselves up to live out fantasies, or paintball, laser gun, laser tag? Are those not acting out fantasies? Let's use the intense one.
Yes, and each one, though, is with the idea that my body is still protected because it's, quote, not quite real. In other words, this paint gun is not a bullet. The things that are popping up around me in the Magic Kingdom or wherever it is in Disney World is not going to harm my body unless something malfunctions. And suddenly, you know what I mean? It's all designed to give me the sense of something going on without a threat to the mind that thinks it is a body.
Well, let me take a shot at laser tag, because I actually did play laser tag one time.
Okay.
Very intense. And I'm going to say that, let's say I'm playing laser tag, totally steeped in kill or be killed.
That's right.
Eat or be eaten. I mean, it's very, very intense.
I would never play paintball again.
It's very intense.
Yeah,
I mean, my
intense.
adrenaline was off the chart.
Yeah.
So how is it that isn't a fantasy that works? I'm going to say that it works this way, is that the whole time I'm going through it, I'm in my head, and I know that these are just bits of light, and there's a scoring process that happens, and that when I get hit, like shot in the shoulder or a kill shot or whatever in laser tag or paintball, there's a brief, inevitable thought, which is, that would have killed you.
Yeah.
You'd be dead. And so that in a way, you're reminded always of the nightmare that the body is, it's almost like the game makes it so that you're invulnerable. You can't be killed. And yet, the purpose of the game is to remind you second by second by second how incredibly vulnerable and dangerous the world is. That's what it's for, and that's why the adrenaline rush.
Yes.
The obvious one is that's what the whole porn industry is.
I think it's saying that it is impossible to act out fantasies, for it is still the fantasies you want, and they have nothing to do with what the body does. Again, it's trying to say that it's the mind that creates the fantasies. And so you're saying that we've deceived ourselves. Remember, back in the prior paragraphs, it's saying you can make the mind deceive yourself about what you're up to and make the body project its guilt onto the body. And so now I'm in a deceptive fantasy that the body is what's doing all of this, but really the mind is what started the whole thing. And
I've got one.
Okay.
It clarifies it for me. Take whether it's pornography or laser tag, or I'm going to use the Taj Mahal. The Taj Mahal, which is that prince or whatever it was built that thing for his wife, and he supposedly was going to build two of them. So let's say his goal was to build heaven on earth, and he employs the best craftsmen. Any amount of money is okay. Just he gets the finest materials from wherever he gets them. Let's say it is the perfect building. It's still not heaven on earth.
Right.
It's still not the fantasy that he had intended. No matter how well we refine our thought of a blade that cuts infinitely sharp and slices right through, there's always going to be some pullback, some limitation of that physical object, whether it's a body or a building or a tool. They'll always have problems that betray that the mind has not been served. The mind has not yet had its fantasy fulfilled.
Right.
And it will have to go on and on and on, trying and trying and trying to fulfill, which is the engine that drives pornography.
Yes.
The idea that fantasy will never, ever, ever be fulfilled.
Yes, I agree. I agree. So I hope that clarified as well the fact that the fantasies are born of the mind, and we project through deception from the mind onto the body, that the body that is what acts out our fantasies, but it's impossible for it to do that. So it says they have nothing to do with what the body does, because the body is considered neutral. It's not something that does of itself. It always requires the mind to do anything, and we have projected that onto it. It does not dream of them, but make it a liability where it could be an asset. How has this served you? You have identified with the thing you hate, the instrument of vengeance, and the perceived source of your guilt.
The body, in that case, it's saying that the body is an unwilling victim of the fantasies of the mind, and the body doesn't dream of any fantasies. You know, I don't have my body doesn't want to be Mr. Universe. My body doesn't want to be a rock star.
No, it's the mind.
But the mind drives it through those scenarios.
Absolutely, yeah. And so it's saying it could be used as an asset. You have done this thing that has no meaning, proclaiming it to be the dwelling place of God's Son and turning it against him. Cannot be.
Well, instead of me, in the case of being Mr. Universe or being a rock star or any other kind of a fantasy, I will employ the mind will employ the body to go through these fantastic scenarios when it could be joining with the brother. You know,
Yes.
it could be saying, well, this is really a hopeless scenario in terms of achieving some sort of godhood in this. You know, like, I'm going to take this Taj Mahal and I'm going to take it all the way to heaven. It just doesn't work.
Right.
And if I can have the wisdom to say that, I can part with the Holy Spirit and then really do have the kingdom of heaven. I really do have the essence, or what the guy would fantasize as the Taj Mahal. It would be the kingdom of God.
Yes.
But that can only be done through this partnership, so that you and I are united, and I don't become more and more powerful and more separate.
And we're probably going to break it right here, because this is a long section, has 13 paragraphs or 14 paragraphs. And so we say, join us again, and we'll just take off from here.
Look for part 2.
Yeah, look for part 2.
Thanks.
This is part 1. Thank you.